Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual presentation of our session on crowdsourced science, how volunteer observers and machine learning together can help protect the wild for the benefits of all. I'd like to start out by introducing Dr. Roland Kays, is the lab head of North Carolina Museum of Natural Science and professor at North Carolina State University. He uses new technologies to study animals and co-founded the MoveBank Animal Tracking Database and the Wildlife Insights Camera Trapping Database. He is also host of the Wild Animals podcast. And today he's going to be talking about how artificial intelligence enables annual continent-wide mammal surveys. So welcome, Dr. Kays, and we look forward to hearing your insights.
Great. Well, thanks, Dan, and thanks everyone for joining us. I'll briefly do, so it's just me as co-author, as author here, but of course there's a big team involved. So I want to just quickly acknowledge a lot of other folks involved in this work on the Snapshot side. So Snapshot is the group that's doing the animal surveys, and then on the Wildlife Insights side, that's helping manage all the data and develop the AI. So I just want to acknowledge a lot of people behind this effort and sort of talking about sort of two different teams coming together. So the motivation for this kind of work is that the world is changing very fast, right? And we see this from all sorts of remote sensing data showing the temperature warming, the fires increasing, the habitat decreasing. We need this information every year because it changes every year, every few months even. And we not only need the data, but we need a timely analysis so that it's processed and we can see the results and get the insights from the data right away. And we start talking about wildlife. We need this for a variety of species, for lots of different locations at large scales. The problem is, it's hard to see wildlife from space. And so we need some other options. And that is really where camera trapping comes in, right? So here you can see some camera trap footage from Shenandoah National Park. And we get wildlife, right? We get people as well. Of course, on this particular trail, there's a lot of people and wildlife together. But these cameras give us a view of what's going on under the forest canopies, what's going on at night that you can't get from space. And, if we put enough of these together, enough of these dots on the map, these are showing some places that we've run cameras here in North Carolina, and you start to add them up over time and get broader and broader coverage, you really can get a good idea of what's going on with the wildlife populations. But the trick is, how do we get them out at this scale? And how do we get them out at this scale, every year so we can keep track of these changes as the world changes? And not only getting the cameras out, but then how do we deal with all the pictures, right? Because you get thousands and thousands of pictures from each one of these camera traps. And so that's a lot to manage. We need to process these pictures. We need to know what animal species was on that image, in that image. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today is first, how can we get annual standardized wildlife data at continental scales? And then second, how can we process the pictures and data efficiently? So let's start with getting the cameras out. This is the Snapshot USA project. The goal is to get cameras in every state and every habitat type across the country. We do it in just 2 months, September and October. And we put a call out to mammalogists who already own cameras. And said, hey, you got the cameras, help us out, run cameras in this standardized way, in your area, in your habitat, just in September and October. And then let's bring all the data together and share it. And so we did this first in 2019. Whoops, one slide too far. We had 127 participants across all 50 states. We really got an incredible response from the scientific community running these cameras in all sorts of different habitats. The great thing was we were able to repeat it. Even in a COVID year, we still had 103 arrays of cameras out there, 1,400 total. You can see a couple example maps there showing some of the different arrays that people have run. And we have them out right now. Well, we've just wrapped up and we're getting the pictures uploaded. It looks like a pretty similar sample size for this year. So pretty exciting that we have now 3 years of continent-wide mammal surveys. And this is, some of the information that you can get is looking at these trends over time, right? So here's an example, just comparing 2019 and 2020 for bobcats. You can see them going up in some places, going down in some other places, but we get this for lots of different species, right? Think about something like gray squirrels. Who's monitoring gray squirrels? Almost nobody monitors gray squirrels in the United States. They're super important species. They're important for seed dispersal, for forest regeneration. And we have now, standardized data from 2 years. You can see, looks like 2020 was a pretty good year. mostly going up, a couple downs. So this is the kind of information we can get, not only to look at these changes over time, but also just the resolution of all these different sites. And excitingly, this year, we've added Snapshot Europe. We collaborated with a big group in Europe, and they rounded up the participants. And just like in the States before, people were pretty excited to join. And so we've got 57 arrays out now across 23 countries. So this is really exciting. It's fun for me to see these new pictures coming in. And I want to point out, sort of some of the difference between this and citizen science, because this is, we're working with scientists. This is scientist science, but it is a giant collaboration. And I've done citizen science camera trapping as well. And, the advantage of working with scientists is, first of all, they have their own equipment, and they take a lot less training because most of them already know how to run camera traps pretty well. The data quality takes less, it comes in cleaner. They identify the species well. Even if they're working with students, they work with them to identify them well. And you end up with kind of a higher sample size per participant in terms of, there's always this logistics of organizing and training and coordinating. And you get sort of more bang for your buck out of that working with scientists and citizen scientists. So I think there's definitely advantages of both, but I thought I'd point this out. And why are they participating? Well, for one thing, we have a data publication. Everyone's a co-author on the data publication. We try to publish the data as soon as we can, make it publicly available for others to use. So everyone gets a publication out of that. There's also a lot of student involvement. A lot of, not all of them, but a lot of them, do it as part of a class. Have the students running the cameras. Some have students analyzing data. We have a online research symposium that had 6 different schools participate this year. So that's great. They also get early access to the data. Like I said, we make it publicly available, but they get it before it's published. And that has resulted in some collaboration networks of folks working together, using the data to ask research questions. And then I think is also kind of a fun aspect, right? I think all of us are looking for excuses to get away from our desk and get out into the field. And this gives a good one to go run some cameras. It's not a lot of work. It gets you out in the woods. And I think it's also, it's fun to be part of something big. It's part of do your little thing, run your cameras in your area, but participate in this nationwide project. And it's worked really well. So just to kind of summarize the Snapshot project, 4,500 locations now sampled in 3 years across 24 countries, all 50 states, lots of interesting species, lots of research questions that we can do, not only over time, but also looking at differences over space. And just as perspective, I sort of checked 10 recently published papers, and their sample size was about 100 locations, average from these 10 to the range was only up to 200. We have now 4,500 locations sampled that I think are going to be really, really useful. And hopefully we'll keep getting more. But let's go back to this problem. How do we deal with so many pictures? And so this is where the AI comes in. And this is part of a collaboration, a project called Wildlife Insights, which is a big collaboration. You can see a lot of the NGOs that are involved at the bottom. We all sort of realized that we really need some cyber infrastructure to manage camera trap data, but we couldn't each afford to develop our own. And so we've developed this as a big collaboration. And the basic idea is we have artificial intelligence to help get the data in, help identify the species, get that more efficient, and then automated analytics to basically get the insights out, as fast as possible. And so we're not even a year out in terms of making Wildlife Insights available to the scientific community. We already have 1,500 users, over 400 projects. So Snapshot USA is one project, Snapshot Europe is one project, and there's 445 other projects out there from other people doing all kinds of different things in Wildlife Insights. Over 22 million images. So the artificial intelligence, is trained to identify the species that are in the pictures. So we're looking at species level, not individual level. And it's trained now on 12 million images around the world. And this is the kind of thing where we are always adding nuances and improving the AI. So we have this framework, and there's lots of research into making this kind of AI better. And we basically take those advances and add them into this production level system. And so the basic idea is that, the unprocessed pictures come in, the AI identifies the species that are in there, and then we still have a human involved. So humans look at all these images and confirm if the AI was right. If it's wrong, they fix it. But what that gives us is this enormous set of training images that we can retrain the AI. Every 2 months, we put out new models to retrain everything. So this is what I'm really excited about, is having this framework so we can always get better. We can always add more pictures. And because you can imagine when the first person runs and uploads pictures from some part of the world that we don't have data from, the AI is not going to know those species. But once we get them processed through the first time, then it will be able to learn it. So the other part of Wildlife Insights is, of course, the metadata. This is what we need from the scientific point of view. And so we're building in this framework to be able to select the data, have some standard sort of cleaning filters, and analyze them for activity, population statistics, and community level statistics. A couple of screenshots of what these are looking like. We've got them coded up. We're getting them built into the platform now, so they'll be available next year, looking at activity, detection rates, occupancy rates, things like that. And I want to point out that I think it's really important. To me, it's really important to get AI plus user-friendly cyber infrastructure, right? Because we want to make these tools broadly available. There are a lot of camera trappers out there who want to have the help of AI to process their pictures better. They want to have, some proper database to manage the data. And they don't, like me, I can't program AI. I can't do that all myself. But by building the system, we're able to really get it out there and hopefully really broaden the use of it around the world and really get these insights that we need to help manage the species, see which species are doing well, which species are struggling, where, and respond to that quickly. So that's really the goal. So just to kind of wrap up, in conclusion, I hope you'll see that we've got this massive collaboration, scientific collaboration with over 100 different PIs collecting data, can collect standardized wildlife data over large scales at an annual basis. That's really exciting to me from a conservation point of view. And then AI plus cyber infrastructure can process these pictures efficiently and basically enable these large collaborations. If we didn't have this, there's no way we could pull this off. There's no way we could manage all the data coming in from all these places. And just, I guess at the end, happy to kind of discuss what are the other options for more snapshot locations. I think this model has proven itself now 3 years in the States and our first year on a multi-country project in Europe. And there's lots of other camera trappers out there, and we'd love to see some collaboration and help us see what's going on, in your backyard every year. So that's it. And I look forward to having a bit of a discussion now.
Roland, thank you very much. That was very exciting. You're really changing the scale at which science is being done. Camera traps are nice because they're fixed. But one of the questions I have is when you talk about standardized way of doing things, you're involving scientists in a standard protocol. What is that standard protocol?
Sure. Yeah, good question. We get this a lot. So we wanted to come up with a protocol that was standardized enough so we could have these standard comparisons, obviously, right? But still flexible enough that some folks would be able to do it in a big preserve, or a small preserve would be able to do it. Maybe they already have a monitoring program and they could use sort of what they're already doing and contribute those data. And so one is sample size. We need to have at least 10 locations monitored. Really, we prefer more sort of 20 to 50. 10 is the minimum. And then the spacing of those cameras is sort of not too close, not too far away. So we say, I think 200 meters can't be closer than 200 meters. And we don't want any cameras greater than 5 kilometers apart. So if they're more than 5 kilometers, then that's another site. Go run another array there. And then we set them, the height you set a camera is really important. Some people set them very high because they only want the deer and the larger things, but we want everything. We want the chipmunks and the skunks and everything. So we have them set it at knee height. And then the thing that we'd like to standardize more, but is the hardest, is the equipment itself, right? Because there are dozens of different camera trap models. Our sort of one requirement is they have to have a fast trigger time of less than half a second, because some cameras, this is easier now. A few years ago, it was hard to get cameras that triggered really quickly, but now most of them have less than half a second trigger time. And so that should make them all, there's definitely differences out there, but that should make them a lot more similar.
Excellent. I mean, it's also the distance at which they capture, right? Some can go out 60 meters, most go out 25 meters. So that will change your estimate about the density and the appearance of the animals, correct?
Yeah, there is some variation across cameras on that. It's again less and less, and I think what plays into that a lot is the body size of the animal. So you have the bigger animals. You know, a herd of wild boar walks by at 25 meters, you still get a picture, but a mouse you're only going to get in the front. And so to some extent, you can standardize that across species. But maybe that's something we can do in the future, is try to get some better camera specific calibrations.
Right. And then does the scientist that's involved provide you with all the detailed information so that whoever's using the data can make corrections and sort of normalize the pattern if they're trying to draw inferences for a particular species across a range of different camera arrays?
Yeah, well, the one thing that we asked them to add is there's a measure we call detection distance, which is how far does the camera trigger on a person that's setting it up. And so that kind of gives you your standard, okay, a person, okay, we're all about the same body size, and how far away does that trigger, so that if it's a camera model that doesn't trigger as far, or sometimes there's a lot of bushes in the way, or the terrain's uneven, that kind of gives you this site level covariate that you can add into models to help explain variation like that.
That's great. Now, do you also provide some of the modeling effort for habitat choice to take into account these differences? Are you building those sorts of tuned analysis tools so that it's easy for people to put their data in and get a normalized pattern across different users?
Yeah, we aren't at the moment. So, you know, Wildlife Insights has a bunch of automated analyses that we're developing, and those are going to be rolled out. They're fairly standard descriptive stuff. We haven't gotten into the more complex modeling yet. So that'll be up to the kind of the individual researchers. And for Snapshot right now, our model has been just make the data publicly available as fast as possible and let people do whatever they want to with it. I'm doing some projects myself with it, and lots of the Snapshot participants are will be co-authors on that once that comes out. But we haven't, I think we're still kind of early, and honestly, we've been doing all this on a shoestring. So we have a bunch of grants in now, and if we can get some more funding, get some more support, there is a lot more I think we could do. We would like to do some training sessions for grad students, for undergrads, even for professionals about some standard camera trap analyses, and maybe some of the cutting edge stuff that's more experimental. And then, like you said, some sort of platform that has the data a little bit more processed, so it's not just the raw images, but maybe a little bit more of modeling products that they could use, would be another great thing to add to this network.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. I mean, one of the things that you were leaning towards at the end of your talk, you're talking about, and in the future, you're going to get animation, activity patterns, basically what the animals are doing. How do you propose to do that? I mean, we do that in Kenya by having a refractory period between when the camera fires, but then we have it fire 3 pictures. So we can see whether the individual is just simply walking or some animals have their head down, grazing, so that we can estimate that during that period, that collection of animals was basically feeding as opposed to just traveling. Yeah. How are you doing that?
Well, at this point, we're just counting if you got a picture, that meant the animal was active. So we're just active in activity. And so just use that. Getting behavior out of the footage is really I think it's a cool idea, and lots of people are doing it in lots of different ways. What we really need is videos. Not just pictures, but actual proper videos, and I love running camera traps with videos because you learn so much more about the animals, and it's so much more rewarding to see the videos, but it's a lot more work to process them. And that's where we're going with Wildlife Insights, is to have some proper video processing. There's a whole new set of challenges there that we're not ready to address. So we don't have that capability at the moment. All the Snapshot cameras have to be run on photographs, like you said, 3 or 5 or 10 in a row, so you can sort of get the pseudo video. But you don't have the audio, you don't have the high resolution, and there's so much more we could do with the AI when you have that information, because when you get proper 30 frames per second or something, you can really track where the animals are, what they're doing. And I think we really could get some of the behaviors that you mentioned, like head up, vigilant, head down. There's a lot that we could do there. So that's something I'm excited about for the future.
Yeah, we've been playing with the idea of 2 camera traps, one for the snapshots and one for the video, so that you've got in tandem. You have the GPS location, the cameras usually record time of day, the moon, the temperature, things like that. So you get the metadata on the environment, and then you can get the fine-grained behavior and the snapshot to get estimates of numbers of animals and things like that. So yeah, I think it's really terrific. How do you get the Europeans involved? I mean, it's great you started out in the US, and then you've got the Europeans as well. Presumably you get Africans, Asians, and so on and so forth as you move around the globe.
Yeah. So, we were just talking with some collaborators and sort of saying, hey, you guys should do, why not Snapshot Europe? Why not? I'm still bugging my friends in Canada. Like, come on, Snapshot Canada, get it together. They're definitely interested. But, the nice thing in Europe, there's a group called Euromammals that's already a big collaboration network of folks that have mostly been involved with tracking data. And so they have Euro deer, they have all their deer data together, they have all their boar data together, they've got lynx data together. They already formed, so they already had this network. And so, we were talking with some of them about some other stuff, and we're like, well, what about Snapshot USA? Or what about camera traps? And they're like, yeah, well, most of our participants have camera traps. We've only been talking about tracking data. And so it was, from that point of view, it was pretty easy to sort of jumpstart the whole thing. And we had to get some coordinators involved. But it was actually kind of, I'm really excited how much participation we've gotten, given it was a little bit of a last minute thing kind of over the summer, like, hey, let's do this and throw some emails out. And wow, we got, 23 different countries involved. And so far it seems to be going pretty well. So, I'd love to help other folks do it in other countries. One of the interesting questions I had like in Europe was, well, should we do Snapshot Europe or should we do like Snapshot Germany, Snapshot Italy, how to base that? And because we already had Euromammals, that just worked great. But I'm not sure, if other places, should we do Snapshot Central America or Snapshot Panama and Costa Rica? I'm not really sure, but that's for somebody in Panama or Costa Rica to decide. If they're interested in doing it, we would love to help them, learn from what we've done and help however we can. But, I see these as regionally led efforts for sure.
Right. And I like your idea that you're working with scientists doing standardization of science. And then the benefit is they're educating their students in the techniques and having discussions in the lab group. One of the things as you were talking, I was thinking, would it be possible to devolve it back to the ordinary public? There are many publics.
Yeah. So we've done here in North Carolina, we did a statewide citizen science project. And so we had a lot of the public involved. And the thing is, running a camera trap and identifying all the pictures and getting the GPS location and uploading everything and filling out the forms, like that's a lot more than taking a cool picture of a bug and uploading it to a website. There's a lot more involved. And so we found we had a lot of people that were like, oh, this is cool, I want to do that. And then they would start to read everything involved, and then they wouldn't follow up. And so I think actually, if the AI can improve, that we could step it up with citizen scientists. If the AI could like right now, the AI is not good enough to just completely trust their identifications, but it's getting better as we get more and more training images, as we add more and more bells and whistles to the how the AI works. I could see us coming back to, hey, run a camera, dump it in there, and we're good to go. But we're not quite there yet.
Right. So one of the things we at WildBook with WildMe, we're working on new algorithms to be able to do individual identifications without the human having to verify that it is the same. Because when you've got 40,000 images, that's a lot of time. But those same algorithms could also be used. Is that a bobcat? Is that a squirrel? And it's an interesting way using graph theory to be able to do that. So that may be available soon. And then if there was a way for ordinary members of the public to buy their camera trap at Dick's and put it in their backyard, they could then upload to the cloud. Then the centralized machine learning can do the analysis rather than the member.
Well, and where I think this is going actually isn't the go to Dick's and buy a sporting goods store. It's the Ring cameras. It's the security cameras that everyone has in their backyard. And those are already networked. And, then we don't even need the videos, right? Like, I don't need your videos from your backyard. But if there was a coyote there, I want that data, that could really, really be useful to have, they could be processed, by the companies.
So they could be looking at their video and then just fill in a template for you and send it in. So that would be the equivalent of a snapshot. Yeah, that's great. Great idea. Yeah, I mean, I think it's this distributive network changes the scale. It also democratizes the science because everybody's involved and they're adding to this big database. I like the fact that most of your squirrel populations were going up, but a couple were going down.
Yep.
I wonder why.
Sure.
During the pandemic, when I couldn't go and teach my courses in Kenya, we democratized the science by having everybody work in their backyard. And because everybody worked in their backyard, we had differences and we were looking at particular hypotheses from their observations, but we could have done it with camera traps as well. If everyone had camera traps, we could have gotten day and nights on vigilance and habitat use with risk. We were looking at risk. And so again, by grabbing everybody and having them participate, it turns out to be a real experience that could be beneficial to science at a broad scale. So thank you very much, Roland.
Sure.
And it was great. And I hope when we all gather in Philadelphia, and I hope the public will watch the video and come to Philadelphia, either virtually or in person, for our live discussion between the three participants in the symposium.
Great. Well, thanks for inviting me for this.
My pleasure.